Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a subject that has completely captivated, confused, and honestly divided people for decades. We're going to impartially investigate the undisputed facts, the totally contradictory conclusions, and the incredibly enduring anomalies surrounding November 22nd, 1963. Our goal here isn't to take sides, right? Instead, we're going to look directly at what the official records actually say and map out exactly why this event remains so hotly debated today. Let's get right into it. 3 shots, 6 seconds. At 12:30 p.m., the most powerful man in the world was sitting in an open-top limousine, just waving to the crowds lining the street in Dealey Plaza. And in a mere 6-second window, the president was killed. The sheer speed and scale of what happened literally changed the course of history in the blink of an eye. Yet, here we are, 60 years later, and a massive portion of the American public still harbors serious doubts about the official story. So how exactly does a 6-second event leave us with 6 decades of questions? Well, to understand why, we have to go back to the beginning. Section 1, the day it happened. Let's trace the immediate timeline of events exactly as they unfolded on the ground in Dallas, Texas. Okay, so at exactly 12:30 p.m., the shots are fired in Dealey Plaza. The initial investigation by the Warren Commission concluded that 3 shots were fired from the 6th floor of the nearby Texas School Book Depository, and they named 24-year-old Lee Harvey Oswald as the lone shooter. Now, just 70 minutes later, Oswald was arrested. Pretty fast, right? But here is where the timeline completely fractures. Within 48 hours of the assassination, the prime suspect is shot dead on live television, before he could ever face a trial, before anything. Now, to make this official timeline work mechanically, the initial investigation by the Warren Commission had to rely heavily on something called the single bullet theory. This is the official conclusion that just one projectile somehow caused a total of 7 distinct wounds in 2 different men, President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally. Crucially, the theory claims that the single bullet had to change direction multiple times mid-flight to cause that highly specific sequence of damage. But man, this is where the historical friction really kicks in. It's incredibly important to point out that this specific trajectory theory isn't just questioned by casual armchair detectives. No, the single bullet theory has been heavily disputed by credentialed ballistics experts for the entire 6 decades since the report dropped. The physics, the speed, and the incredibly complex trajectory required for one bullet to do all of that, it remains a massive glowing point of contention in the official record. And that friction brings us to perhaps the most shocking secondary event in this whole narrative. Section 2, the killing of the killer. The investigation hit an absolute brick wall just 2 days after the assassination. As Oswald was being transferred through the basement of the Dallas police headquarters, a local nightclub owner named Jack Ruby literally just stepped forward from this huge, dense crowd of reporters and police and shot Oswald at point-blank range. Oswald died barely 2 hours later. By permanently silencing him, Ruby ensured that the one and only suspect in the assassination of the president was gone, long before investigators could properly question him, and most importantly, before he could ever be cross-examined in a court of law. So how did the government actually react to this chain of chaotic events? Believe it or not, we actually have 2 completely contradictory official government conclusions. Back in 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that both Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby acted completely alone, no broader coordination whatsoever. But then, fast forward to 1979. Examining the exact same event with new analytical tools, the House Select Committee on Assassinations officially concluded that President Kennedy was probably killed as the result of a conspiracy. Think about that. 2 official investigations, 2 completely different historical records. So how on earth could 2 government bodies look at the exact same event and come to such vastly different conclusions? That brings us to Section 3, what the evidence shows. Right at the absolute center of the physical evidence is the famous Zapruder film. It's just 26 seconds of 8mm home movie footage, but you guys, it has quietly become the most analyzed piece of film in human history. It captures the entire sequence of the shooting in real time as the motorcade rolled past the grassy knoll. It provides this completely unforgiving visual record of the event that analysts have literally pored over, frame by agonizing frame. And within that footage, one specific moment has fueled absolutely endless debate. Frame 313 clearly shows the president's head moving backward and to the left at the exact moment of the fatal impact. A lot of physicians and forensic analysts have argued that this specific physical movement is entirely consistent with a shot coming from the front of the motorcade. Obviously, that directly contradicts the initial conclusion of a lone shooter firing from the book depository because that was located behind the motorcade. But you know, it's not just what we can see that causes so much debate. It's what we can't see. Compounding all these physical anomalies is a stark, highly documented lack of transparency. For instance, a later U.S. Senate committee actually confirmed that the CIA withheld vital information from the original Warren Commission investigators. And incredibly, vital physical evidence, specifically the president's brain, which could have definitively proven the bullet's trajectory, somehow just went missing from the National Archives. And perhaps the wildest part, 6 decades later, thousands of related documents still remain strictly classified by the government today. This incredible, tangled web of missing evidence and contradictory reports brings us right back to the center of the mystery itself. Section 4. Lee Harvey Oswald. Who was he? When you actually map out the suspect's background, his trajectory is genuinely baffling. Okay, so in 1959, Oswald, who was a former U.S. Marine with radar training, defects to the Soviet Union at the absolute height of the Cold War. And while he's there, he actually marches into the U.S. Embassy and offers to share American military secrets with the Soviets. Yet, incredibly, in 1962, he simply returns to America. And he faces absolutely no apparent legal consequences for his defection or his documented offer to share secrets with a hostile foreign power. He just kind of slips right back into normal American life. And this is exactly where this silence is deafening. Before his sudden death at the hands of Jock Ruby, Oswald was briefly paraded in front of reporters in the chaotic, crowded hallways of the Dallas police station. He never confessed. He never got the chance to explain his highly unusual Cold War history or his exact movements that day. He maintained only one consistent defense, captured in this famous quote, "I'm just a patsy." He explicitly claimed he had been completely set up to take the fall. So, where does all of this documented, undeniable friction actually leave us today? That brings us to our final section, unanswered questions of power. As we wrap up this explainer, we're really just left looking at the immense weight of 60 years of missing pieces. A sitting president was shot in an open car in broad daylight. The only suspect was killed before he could speak on the record. Key physical evidence is missing, and thousands of documents remain locked away, totally safe from public scrutiny. This isn't just about a tragic day in Dallas anymore. It leaves us with profound, lingering questions that go to the very core of our society. Because if the records on something this monumental, this public, can be this fractured, it kind of forces us to ask, who truly holds power? How is it really exercised? And ultimately, is the public ever told the whole truth? It's a massive question, and it's one definitely worth keeping in mind every time you look at the official record. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack all of this, and keep asking the big questions.